Good afternoon to you. Mark Seth with HurricaneTrack.com. Time to talk about what's going on in the tropics here. It is August 17th, 2021. I am in Panama City Beach. That's the hotel room behind me you see there. I've been down here tracking Fred. I came down leaving very early in the morning of the 16th. That would be yesterday. Drove all the way down, got into place, and intercepted Fred down at Cape San Blas, and got a pretty good pressure reading down there. I'll show you that in just a moment. So we're going to talk about the remnants of Fred, Henri out there near Bermuda, and what's going to eventually happen with Grace. All right, got a good night's sleep last night. Feeling much better today. I was pretty haggard yesterday, and why not? You know, that's a long windshield chase, so to speak. I did set one camera up over in St. Mark's, but nothing much happened over there. So this was a pretty good windshield chase, as I call it, live streaming along the way, posting things on Twitter, such as this screen capture from Radar Scope. That was my location in the center. You can call it an eye. It doesn't have to be a hurricane to have an eye, perhaps. Yeah, maybe, maybe not. But I was in the center of it down here at Cape San Blas. And is that how you say it, or is it Blas? Either way, that's where I was, and I recorded an air pressure, minimum air pressure of 995 millibars on a very reliable barometer. And I even drove back and forth a couple of miles through the Cape region over to Indian Pass as well, seeing if I could find a lower pressure, if I could get it down to maybe 994, and I couldn't. So Hurricane Center indicating that this was 994 at landfall. You know, whatever, I got 995. I saw a pressure reading mentioned elsewhere on social media of 993.6 or something like that. Bottom line, it didn't quite make it to hurricane intensity. There was enough dry air and wind shear pushing in from the south that kept Fred from organizing enough to be classified as a hurricane. But you know what? For the people that this impacted, the classification of it really didn't matter. It had a lot of heavy rain, especially on the western side, and all of that heavy rain now moving up into the deep south, Atlanta, all the way up into the Appalachians. You know, it's a big mess. You don't have to have a 100-mile-an-hour hurricane to give you major problems. Here's an example of that. This is in the Lynn Haven area yesterday, and let's just mute this. Flooding rain, very heavy rainfall, some of the heaviest rain I've seen, not in Lynn Haven, but I went up towards the interstate from here. Very heavy rainfall, kind of ties up there in the top three for me. Ties? Yeah, I'm a little tired still. It ranks in the top three for me. Harvey was the heaviest rain I've ever seen in my career. Florence was number 2. And that rainfall in that western quadrant there of Fred was number 3 for sure. So lots of heavy rain yesterday causing this flooding. Fortunately, Fred was moving on fairly quickly. It didn't stall, and this area was able to dry out rather soon thereafter. Still some flooding problems. People probably got stranded in their houses, couldn't leave. But you know what? A lot of this was after dark. Hopefully there was really nowhere to go. And now that the sun is out, things can start to kind of return to normal, people cleaning up the mess out there. So here's the remnants of Fred now moving up through the deep south into the southeast and whatever you want to call it, the eastern part of the country. There's Henri, here's Grace, and then you might look at this and say, oh boy, there's more coming. Well, not so fast. This big Saharan air outbreak going to kind of put the lid on things for a while, so we'll take a look towards the end of the discussion as to when we might expect an uptick again. So for whatever reason, Fred is not showing up on our interactive tracking map, but it's there. I'll show you some radar imagery of it in just a minute. Here is Henri doing a loop kind of around Bermuda out here, and we can zoom in and take a look. There's Bermuda made up of several islands. Bermuda is not just one island. And isn't it interesting that Henri kind of started up here and is just going to kind of go around Bermuda. Now, one thing that Henri will do as it travels more west with time, it is a tropical storm. It's generating wind, so it will send swells out that'll eventually reach the east coast and maybe even the northern coast of the Caribbean islands. We'll talk about that later on, you know, especially tomorrow when I do my update, because it's still summertime. I know people are going back to school, but people are going to the beach still, and these rip currents and swells that cause the rip currents, well, that's part of it. That can be deadly, so I want to keep you on top of all that, keep you safe. All right, so as far as Grace, looks like it could become a hurricane over the Caribbean, making landfall here somewhere in the Yucatan. So if you have interests down there as it passes near Jamaica today, very close to the Caymans thereafter. See, there's the Cayman Islands right through here. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting system. Sometimes these develop very rapidly over the Northwest Caribbean if conditions allow, but it's just been weird how stuff has been sputtering along as of late. Not that anybody is complaining, just making an observation there. We'll see if Grace continues to do that kind of sputtering, or will it break that precedent and ramp up quicker? We'll see about that. But if you have interest down here in the northeast part of the Yucatan, again, this is just the track line for the center. It could be north, it could be south. The effects extend well away from the center. You should know that by now. But if you're vacationing down there, Cozumel up to Cancun, anywhere along that region, it's coming. Be ready. There could be a hurricane impact or multiple impacts from Grace becoming a hurricane. Then it crosses the Bay of Campeche here, and then finally making landfall somewhere between Tuxpan and Tampico, possibly as a strong hurricane. The modeling kind of waffling here as well, but this area could receive quite a nasty hit as Grace finally makes landfall. One thing of note, Fred and Grace both originated from tropical waves a couple weeks ago over Africa, made their way westward without much development, waited until they were in the western part of the basin to get going, and now you're seeing the results of that. And I think that is going to be the theme going forward, that all of this activity we see coming may not do so well, as they say, in the eastern part of the Atlantic, and it's going to wait until the western part of the basin to develop, and that gives us less time. We saw that last year, especially with Laura, for example, waiting until those last couple of days before it really took off. And I think we're going to see that again this year with these sort of late bloomers across the Atlantic basin. And hey, look, Linda still out there kind of hanging on. It should die out and become a remnant circulation before reaching the vicinity of Hawaii. And just to give you some peace of mind, that is still a pretty good distance away. Trust me. So no worries if you're out in the string of pearls from Linda posing any impacts. So this is really, really awesome. The radar animation that I love showing you from Mark Nissenbaum at Florida State University put this together. I think I've got it set, to 150 frames. Really, really awesome here. So here's Fred. Still has these feeder bands coming in. And there's the low-level center, very well defined. Very heavy rain here. You've got the upslope flow, the orographic lift that's going to be a problem in the Appalachians. This is where I'm most concerned for there to be the potential for loss of life, that people hiking and camping out here and people that live out here. You have areas down in the valleys that are at the bottoms of some of these streams. You got some elevations in here. Orographic lift, that's where the moisture gets lifted up over the mountains and wrung out, and that's going to be a big problem in this area. So if you know people there, sorry, bumped the laptop. If you know people, let me get me back on. I hate talking at you. I like to talk to you. If you know people that live out there and you're thinking, they're probably not in tune with this kind of stuff, send them an email, call them up, send them a text. This is headed their way. And even on the east side of it, indirectly related, some of the bands trying to come in off the Atlantic. It just shows you how sprawling these tropical systems are, these low pressure areas trying to feed that warm core any way that it can, so it's even pulling in moisture from off the Atlantic. So this will all move up to the northeast with time from here and bring rain all the way up. Jumped ahead, sorry about that. I'm out of my element. Where was I? Right here. When I'm in the office at home, it's a lot easier. This is all going to move up this way, and that heavy rain threat will go with it. So just keep that in mind, all right? Be weather aware. All right, so I want to show you this. This is really cool. That radar that I just showed you, this is the guy, and you think, what is that crazy hair? That's just a tree behind him. I saw it this morning when I looked at it on Twitter myself. I tweeted this picture. That's Mark Nissenbaum right there from Florida State. This is Jake. And these are the five gentlemen that met me down there in Mexico Beach. This is the infamous Exxon, and that's the pole that I had the GoPro on for Hurricane Michael. This is where all of that happened. And so we met up. These are students at Florida State. That's Mark Nissenbaum there on the right, and Jake Karstens there in the Florida State jacket. Great group of guys, future meteorologists for you. There you go. Nice to meet them. And we froze our butts off there in the rain. It's called evaporative cooling. You know, when you get out of the shower and you're cold. Well, we at least had clothes on, thank goodness, right? But you still get cold when the rain is blown by strong wind, even if it is in the upper 70s outside. All right, moving along. This is interesting. I thought this would happen, and it makes sense. Fred carved out an area of cooler sea surface temperatures. So that's good for now, but it's still only August 17th, and most of the rest of the Gulf is still quite warm. But I just thought that was neat. I always marvel at what these systems can do. And this big old heat engine came along. And not only does it take heat out, distributing it from the atmosphere to some extent, but it removes the heat from the ocean. And that helps to balance things out as well. So looking at the broader picture, you can see the anomalies. That previous map was an actual sea surface temperature chart. It even created some anomalies, a departure there, just a little bit, a little cold pool, relative to average, if you will, slightly cooler than it was before, but the rest of the main development region generally warmer than average. The Western Gulf certainly is, most of the Caribbean, but boy, look at the Northwest Atlantic. Wow, very, very warm compared to the 30-year average, and that'll set up a very strong high-pressure area over southeast Canada. We've seen that in the modeling and the seasonal guidance. And so once we get this Sal outbreak that's coming out now and sort of reset the system, these tropical waves will continue to come off Africa and move west. And some of them are going to develop, and I bet one or two goes up the East Coast, and we're going to have more headed towards Florida and the Gulf. We are far from done, especially with that kind of sea surface temperature anomaly pattern in the Atlantic and this burgeoning La Nina, which will reduce wind shear going on through September and into October. I know it's still August, but hurricane season goes 6 months for a reason, and I think we're going to really feel that and see that this year. So, you know, looking ahead, there's Henri, put a little H there for that. There's Grace, little G, and here is Fred, terrible F, but you get the idea. And you might again say, look at that. That's going to be a monster. Probably not. That is some serious Saharan air. It is farther to the north, you know, because it is later in the summer, and so these southerly systems can hold on. This energy will remain intact and come across, yes, but this is a formidable dry air outbreak, Saharan air layer as we call it, and I don't see anything developing anytime soon, so we're going to take a little bit of a break probably. I mean, we still have several systems to track, don't get me wrong, but nothing new coming down the pike, as it were. This is a neat thing here, this Hofmoeller diagram. What does it show? Well, this is, let's first get a color that we can all see. We'll use this dark blue. This is where we are now, and this we're just going to focus on this part of the diagram. So this is a longitudinal base diagram. So you look at where it's valid for. It's valid for this area right through here. So right now, some favorability, the green, happening across this area. Going forward, down the diagram, this is the future. You see? So we start headed towards less favorable for the next couple of weeks or so. Not even that far. Sorry, I was looking at the... Got to remember my time frame here. This is the next 15 days. So look, within 2 weeks, much more favorable conditions start to set up all across this region. That is what this shows. So about the 25th of August, from there and into September, things should start to get busy again. So a little bit of a downturn right now. This is representative of the velocity potential of the atmosphere, less rising motion, the Saharan air layer coming through during this period. It'll be out, and then we get another period going forward for this region. The tropics, the deep tropics of the Atlantic Basin, probably going to get busy again towards the end of the month. So this is a warm-up This is kind of like when you go see a band or a comedian and they have the guest, welcome my special guest, whoever. Well, that was Fred, Henri, and Grace. The main show is coming, and I don't take it lightly. I use these analogies to help you understand, but we are definitely loaded for bear for the Atlantic Basin to be very busy on into and through October as well. So keep those hurricane preps going, whatever that means for you. Generator, make sure it's all good and ready to go. Follow up on your insurance questions if you've ever had them. Store a little bit of extra cash here and there if you can. ATMs generally don't work when the power is out. My good friend and supporter down in the Virgin Islands, Brent, was telling me about the nightmare that he had to go through after Irma because he didn't have enough cash on hand. And that area, of course, was devastated by a Cat 5. You can just have a Category 1 come in and knock the power out for a few days. You don't have cash, it might be hard to buy stuff. Just little things like that can help make things a lot easier and at least reduce the stress. We're never going to eliminate this stuff. So we have to adapt, use our brains, our technology, and our collective experiences to be ready the best we can. All right, that is it from me. I'm going to wrap things up down here in Florida, start making my way back home. And I got a lot of projects going, so it's going to be good to work on those for the next week to 10 days, hopefully without interruption. And then after that, we shall see. As always, thanks for tuning in and giving me a piece of your day. I appreciate it very much. I am Mark Sedeth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.